Hello and welcome back to my channel. Here we have a video from Shane about the Earth 2 phases, or the roadmap for Earth 2. Now, as someone who has been rather critical in the past of Shane and his lack of a clear roadmap, I wanted to do a video on this because this is a brief explanation from Shane about a few of the phases, anyways, about a little bit of the roadmap. So he's finally giving us the thing that I was at least saying that they need to give if they intend on actually making this, if they want people to actually stop criticizing them and hating on them for not having one and not being clear and transparent. That's the word I was thinking of. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Hello Earth2 community, I hope you've been doing well and keeping safe. Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll just briefly discuss a little bit about the different phases inside of Earth2. To date, Earth2 has spoken openly or outwardly about three phases: Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3.
Now, this is true. I forget if it's my first or second video that I did on this. I did actually point out a statement he made in 2020 where he talked about having three different phases in mind. He didn't say much about it. They didn't really have anything they could share on it, I suppose. But he has mentioned this prior.
Phase 1 saw the launch of our MVP, and it provided players with the ability to buy, own, trade, sell, and bid on geolocational virtual land tiles based on real-world locations. There was also the option to lightly customize your properties, the player's properties, with brief explanations on what the property was and country-generated flags. The country-generated flags led to the ability of players to create their own tile art, and really saw the first introduction of player creativity on Earth 2.
Now, I will say, this is nice. Being able to be creative is nice, especially when that's something you've promised. However, I just want to have everyone keep in mind that you don't necessarily always want to praise someone for doing the bare minimum. Now, I will, of course, grant that this is very nice. This being able to create some of the things that they have done is pretty cool. However, ultimately, it's essentially just painting pixels, which is something I can do in Paint. And I could replicate everything he's doing here in Paint, essentially. It wouldn't be, wouldn't be able to have other people actively doing it at the same time as me. But, I mean, I could take a 2D printout of the Earth, slap it into Paint, draw some things on it, save the file, send it to someone else, and then they go and put something on it and they send it to the next person or whatever, right? So it's very much it's a nice feature, but it doesn't really give anything, and it's not gameplay,
which was beyond cool. Phase 2, which is what we're in right now, is focused on the economic simulator, or EcoSim for short, and it is predominantly focused on creating the economic foundation for Earth 2 to move forward. This phase is extremely important and will be rolled out over a long period of time. However, to date, we've seen the rollout of some ecosystem features such as Mentars, Ether, Essence, Jewels, the Bazaar, and more. EPLs or
So, the primary issue with this is all of it is useless. All of the resources that are currently implemented are worthless. They don't actually do anything. If we back up here,
Essence, Jewels, the Bazaar.
so right here we can see that, like, you know, some of them they'll increase like sand production or oil production or things like this, but none of that stuff is actually in the game or in the browser-based project as it is. So you're selling people these items and allowing them to collect these items that have no value. They have no worth. They are a solution to a problem that doesn't even exist.
And more. EPLs or Earth 2 property locators also became available in Phase 2 as part of our long-term goal to...
So, EPLs are... I'm going to do a much better job of explaining it than what he does, because you can see what they are here on screen. But in other words, they are NFTs. To make a long story short, they're NFTs. They are URLs that you can use to locate a specific tile in Earth 2. Which is exactly what an NFT is. It's a URL to a JPEG. That's all it is. It's
to introduce searchable text data capable of linking directly to 3D locations, much the same way as a URL works for a web page. The importance of EPLs will become more apparent over time. The player creativity...
That right there, EPLs will become... the use of them will become apparent over time. It's the exact same thing that gaming publishers like EA are using for why we don't understand NFTs, and NFTs are the future of gaming, but they're not.
That we saw in Phase 1 with tile art was so impressive that we decided to focus on building our own 3D model solution, which also rolled out during Phase 2. This allowed players to create something called holo buildings.
Now, he's about to explain what holo buildings are in a little bit more, but these are nice. However, one thing he's going to mention is that these can't even be sold. So they also don't take anything to make, as far as I'm aware, because there's nothing to use as far as resources. And it's like, these are nice. They do have a lot of customizability. However, from what I can tell, these are just like 3D planes that can be stacked on top of each other. And again, nice, but they don't do anything. They're yet another thing added into Earth 2. Admittedly, again, these can't be sold. He intends on letting you sell them later, but as of right now, these things that players are allowed to create and have more intrinsic value than a 2D plane with some pixels painted on it. You know what I mean? So but he can't sell them. So it's very baffling. They will sell you 2D squares that give you nothing, but they will not allow you to sell the thing that you're allowed to create.
These are also
That's 3D, by the way.
Part of phase 2, and they not only support player creativity, but they provide utility inside of the ecosim as well. Soon players will be able to sell their holo buildings to one another, proving once more our commitment to rewarding players for their creativity. And
why not just let them sell it right out of the gate? It's very baffling why they're not allowing it to happen immediately when they're letting you sell the those gems or whatever that increase production speed for things that don't exist. They'll let you sell and buy those things that have literally no purpose at all until they decide to put in the problem. But you can't sell these to each other. These 3D assets that you created.
by allowing them to build, sell, and trade their creations. The next part of phase 2 will be focused on resource availability and the validation of resources on a player's property. This will in turn lead to the ability for players to start producing resources and raw materials from their properties and much, much more. We originally planned for phase 2 to be more or less completely based on the website, so completely in 2D. We didn't imagine that much of phase 2 was actually going to involve too much 3D real-time gameplay. We had the intention of delivering 3D gameplay probably a few years into the future as we drew closer to phase 3. However, the progress that our phase 3...
So, real quick, I'm going to pause before he continues. The issue that people were having wasn't that you were intending on doing 3D gameplay in phase 3, if that's really what you were planning, because there's no information on phase 3. Even in the article that I saw before, there was like a vague mention of phase 3, but nothing as far as what might come with it. 3D gameplay, because, and I've said this once before and I'll continue saying it, because of how efficient it is, mostly, almost all aspects of the game are worked on at the exact same time. There are obviously some things that can't happen while other things are being happening. Like, if you're just starting to create things, you obviously aren't going to have any gameplay because you're just starting. You have to make the models and all that. However, that only takes, for a single character model to be made would take probably, to get a character model that would be able to run in a 3D game engine, right? That didn't look just like a bunch of blocks, that looked like an actual character, right? Like an actual thing that would be in the game itself. That will take, at absolute most, a couple months. Absolute most. And I'm talking like you're setting up, you're detailing the entire model, you're getting textures, you're setting up the rig, you're setting up animations, you're setting up the animations to be able to actually work in the engine itself, right? You're doing all of that, right? Couple months, right? We'll say 10 months. Okay, we'll give you 10 months for that. Okay. The last video I did, you were 16 months. That gives you 6 months to provide any gameplay at all. Like, even just the model without textures running around in a small 3D sandbox, right? Overwatch, I mentioned this before, Overwatch had alpha gameplay long before the 6 months. They had it 3 months into development, right? And that's with a character model, right? So 10 months is extremely generous. If we go to but just down to 3 months, like Overwatch had, then that leaves you 13 months to produce literally any amount of gameplay in any way, shape, or form. And you've given us absolutely nothing. You gave us the buggy video, which had no model in it at all. Also, that video is gone. You've given us a flyover of a 3D map from basically any flight simulator. I can go and load up Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and fly over the Earth. It's not that impressive or anything. Regardless of the speed you were moving at, regardless of any of that, none of that actually matters. Because unless you're going to let the player move at that exact same speed, it doesn't matter if you're going 16 times the speed of light. If the player can't move that fast, it doesn't matter. And for a game, if it doesn't matter, it's not included. It just takes up data, it takes up processing power. There's no point. That's why models don't have anything inside of them. They're just they're hollow inside. All models, character models, buildings, anything. That's why if you clip a camera through like a wall or something, you'll see the two different sides of the wall, but there'll be nothing in the center of it, because there doesn't need to be. It's not important, so they don't add that kind of thing, that kind of detail. Additionally, most of the time, because of like collision boxes and whatnot, if you try to put your camera inside a wall, it'll just run up against the wall rather than actually going into the wall, though obviously there are some exceptions. So it's we'll get into it here again, some more here in a moment.
Team has made on developing our first Earth 2, the digital world, has been so impressive that we sat down and looked at the opportunities that we had and how we could potentially introduce 3D gameplay a lot earlier. So instead of
doing it at all, literally doing it at all, you could have given the players a single city on Earth. Literally, you could have just given us well, not us, because I don't intend on buying into Earth 2, but you could have given your players, your investors, literally even a single city, or even just a flat plane. Just let them walk around on the Earth map itself, the 2D plane. Let them physically be able to interact with all of their different things, right? Let them themselves create the hollow buildings in a 3D space rather than just through a web-based browser. These are the little things that separate something from being considered a game and being considered something else.
Instead of Phase 2 being completely based on the website in 2D, we really pushed the barriers. Our team worked hard, and now we're looking at the real opportunity to use the E2V1, the first 3D digital world of Earth 2, as a platform to deliver that 3D gameplay. This is something we internally refer to as like a Phase 2.5.
Now, I just real quick want to say I hope for your sake, Shane, that your gameplay that you're talking about isn't Drone 2. Or isn't Drone the game. Because if it's just Drone the game, that's not your gameplay. That is a game you have bought and then put into Earth 2. It's a very similar thing, yes, but they are different, and it's an important distinction to make.
Phase 2.5 is definitely a big bonus for our project. It makes Phase 2 a lot more interesting, and although Phase 2.5 or this Phase 2 3D gameplay will not have the same high level of detail that we expected for our phase 3, or we expect for our phase 3 in the future, it will provide a much more interesting platform for our players to interact on and have the Earth 2 experience inside of.
Yes. Correct. This whole part right here is why I think that this script was written for him. This is why I don't think he wrote it. These are a lot more concise responses and feels very PR. Now, that's not a bad thing, mind you. I'm not saying that any of that is a bad thing. That is a good thing. His previous videos only served to stir the pot, as it were, because in previous videos he would just make a whole bunch of claims and then provide nothing to back it up. If what he's saying is true, then they have some 3D gameplay that his team, not the drone team, his team created. Wonderful, fantastic. I can't wait to see it so you can prove all the haters wrong, right? And that's the thing. A lot of people, even if they hate on the project, they want to see it succeed. We don't want to see this thing fail. You've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars into it, and you have all these people that want this to come out, that are hyped for this thing. We want to see it succeed. Because again, this kind of project, if it succeeds, could be really, really good. It could be an amazing way to take the next step forward. Not just in gaming, but in technology. This kind of thing, if this succeeds and is improved upon and built upon, it can create significantly better technologies in the future as a direct result, and it could be absolutely amazing. But we have to actually get there, and we're not getting there. So, see the issue?
It will allow you as the player to experience early visualization of our 3D geolocational metaverse, which is a win for everybody. It will allow us to move toward phase 3 in steps and continuously roll out updates to this work in progress digital world, providing better and better experiences over that period.
So basically, what he's saying is, oh, we should have a beta. So that way people can actually play the game and, be rewarded for giving you money and buying into your project. It's rolling something out early and then releasing additional content in patches is what all games do nowadays. In fact, most games release so broken and buggy that people have come to accept that as the norm. And if you release a game that isn't glitchy and buggy and a pile of crap, you're actually hailed as something of a unique oddity in the gaming circle. Imagine, if you will, that 2 months ago, Earth 2 rolled out a beta that had its 3D Earth that you could go and run around on, and you could collect your resources and place down your hollow buildings. This entire for 3 months now. If you could do that right now, a lot of the complaints that people have with Earth 2 wouldn't even exist. But we can't, because there's no gameplay to Earth 2. All it is a giant 2D browser-based stock market of sorts. The things that you can buy and sell have no actual value. They don't give you anything right now. Yes, you intend on giving us stuff in the future, but that's just because you're going to be creating the problem after selling us the solution. So it's... when you're dealing with the gaming community, they have been jaded and spat upon and treated like crap by so many AAA developers at this point that we just don't give a fuck. And if you do things like this that, for all intents and purposes, is the exact same thing that other AAA studios are doing, which is making a load of promises and never seeming to actually fulfill them, we're going to call you out and we're going to say you're a liar and that you're a scam artist. Like, that's just how the gaming community is. There have been so many AAA developer promises in games that have come out that have been just absolute shit and just not what we were promised or told, that we just don't care anymore. And if you don't deliver on the promises, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter how you do it, it doesn't matter what you do, people are going to hate and despise you because it's the internet. That's how it is. So if he's going to roll out a beta with actual 3D gameplay that they have developed, that isn't just Drone the Game, fantastic, amazing. We'll have to wait and see on just how gameplay it is
over that time. Anyway, I just wanted to create this video to provide some clarity on the earlier than expected 3D gameplay that we're going to be able to provide to you. It is definitely a big win for Earth 2, and the fact that we're rolling this out during Phase 2 is way ahead of schedule, way ahead of our internal plan schedule anyway. I'll continue to share some candid thoughts from time to time as time permits, and thank you again for listening. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, keep safe and goodbye.
All right. So, overall, very good video. He makes a lot of very good statements. He provides a lot of very clear and concise answers. Overall, it's really good. Good job, Shane. I hope that you actually hold up to your promises. I hope that this beta comes out, and I hope that this beta is good, especially. Because if it is good, then we won't really have anything to argue about. But overall, I think that this was a good video from him, as I said. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. Until then, take care.